Welcome. We are here to break down, give you a step-by-step of how a 20-year law enforcement officer with prior military experience who ended up on medical leave and was really struggling with his treatments, and how we got him to start sleeping, have energy, reduce his hypervigilance, get his motivation and drive back, and get his life back. When we first met, he did not think that he would be able to go back to work to a job that he loved. And now it looks like he is going to be able to, as you may have heard in the interview. So if you have not seen the interview, pause this right now, send me a message, and I'll send you the link for the interview. If you have, then let's get started and break down how he did this. So when I first met him, we're going to call him David. That you'll learn from me. That's often my alias name that I use for a lot of the gentlemen in my program because of safety for you guys. Keeping your names anonymous is really important. So this was last March of 2019. This gentleman, David, he was in my free Facebook group, my 911 stress management Facebook group. And in that group, he actually wrote a post one day. It is currently 6:47 p.m. Tuesday evening. I've been going as of 7 a.m. Monday morning on roughly at best an hour of sleep. So he's been going about 36 hours now. And he only had an hour of sleep before that. Now, the reason he only had that hour of sleep before that was because his body could not sleep. He was struggling with tired and wired and waking mid-sleep. So after a myriad of energy drinks, at least 2 pots of coffee and fast food in between conducted controlled buys, surveillance, pre-raid reconnaissance, 2 forced entries on 2 search warrants, and a vehicle pursuit, I'm whooped. It didn't occur to me until my partner and I were cleaning out our vehicle of the remnants of fast food wrappers and aluminum cans rattling on the floor that we resembled 2 meth addicts tweaking through a journey across country. While knowing what we are putting our bodies through is detrimental to our well-being, we had a conversation about why we do these things without question or hesitation, to not only ourselves, but to our families. Does it ever end? When do we start letting go of the never-ending pursuit of holding that line that gets harder to hold every day? When do we stop making time for the profession and start making time for ourselves without the feeling of guilt towards either side? Now, how many of you are resonating with this? Your job is full of long shifts, 12-hour shifts, 24-hour shifts, 48 hours. Then you guys have the overtime. You don't have a lot of time in between. You have to commute home, try to sleep, commute back, day, night, all of these things. And they just start taking their toll, especially when you are on special task force, like this gentleman was. So in the spring, shortly after writing that, David ended up on medical leave. He ended up with a PTSD diagnosis. He was waiting for therapy. You know how the system goes. He was trying to do it through the whole system, financially, much easier if it is paid for, especially now that his wages were cut. And so he ended up talking to me. And we got on the phone and we went through it, and it all sounded great to him. But there was just something in the back of his mind, which he didn't tell me then. He did tell me once we started working together again. He told me that he had always heard of therapy and the prescriptions and all of these things as the form of treatment. That the form of treatment that I was giving him, he'd never ever heard of before. And so he wanted to try first what everybody else was talking about. So he did eventually get into therapy. He didn't connect well with that therapist. So he found that that therapist wasn't specific to officers and did not understand an officer's life. They were more with addicts and such. Eventually he changed therapists, which also took a while. That first therapist did offer him some prescriptions, which he tried. The second therapist also had him with some prescriptions, and he didn't have any change. Spring, summer was going on, and he did not have any change with the prescriptions, with the therapies. He was struggling to get through the therapies because of the brain fog. So he didn't have any energy. He could not turn off his mind. He was absolutely exhausted, but he couldn't fall asleep. And then when he would fall asleep, he would wake up mid-sleep. He'd toss and turn, maybe fall asleep again, and only to just wake up soon after. His hypervigilance was so bad that if his family was going to a restaurant, and which already had him on high alert, if he could not get a corner table where he had a view of the whole restaurant, they had to leave. He would take his kids out to do errands or do things. And he just would get short with them very quickly. Now, if you heard him talk about his kids, he loved his kids so much. His heart is full. His family is just everything to him, that this wasn't who he wanted to be. He was on edge. He used to say that when his wife was cooking in the kitchen, the sounds of her just doing regular cooking sounded like she was banging pots and pans right beside his ears. And the kids just playing regular kid happy sounds would get under his skin because it sounded so loud to him. Questions, everything from them would just get him short and so easily frustrated. He couldn't focus. Near the end, before his medical leave, his brain fog was so bad that when he was at the beginning of his career, he prided himself in his reports. But the last few years, he struggled. And I'll get into that as to why this all happens. But he was really struggling with that focus. They took so much energy and drained him, and he couldn't remember details. And his motivation and drive was gone, things he used to love to do. He was an outdoor guy, and he didn't go outside anymore. He didn't do anything except for lay in a ball in the morning, struggle to get out of bed, and pretty much sit around all day trying to do things. And before his family would come home, he'd try to rush around and get things done if possible to make it look like he did things. That's where he was all spring, all summer, therapy, prescriptions, all of those things. So he decided then to give me a try. Although he wasn't still 100% committed, he was still taking the prescriptions, the anti-drugs, as I call them, anti-anxiety, anti-depressants. And then, so what he was doing was he kind of skipped the first part of our program, which is where we boost your stress management system and give it that support. And he wasn't getting that because he was on his meds. But then he ended up having a big serotonin dump from his prescriptions. And he was like, okay, I've given these enough of a try. This is done. And he 100%, so he went with his doctor, absolutely with his doctor's guidance, got off of them, stayed off of them for a week, and then he tried the first phase of our program. So let me just backtrack right now. I'm going to go back to the symptoms that he had before and talk you through as to why these physical symptoms were happening. So the first thing to note is that your stress management system, your physical stress management system, cannot distinguish between a mental and a physical stress. So wearing your vest, which anywhere between 25 and 40 pounds for a 12-hour shift, is a physical stress on your body. add in a foot pursuit, add the physical stress of shift work on your body, of physically having to keep your body awake at night and sleep in the day. Add in rushing to the 911 calls, your priority call, 999 for those of you in the UK. Rushing to those calls is what really is another physical stress on your body. And then there are mental stresses, but they're not even all that people are taking into account. Yes, you have your traumas. You have the fact that nobody is calling you because they're having a great day. So everything that you are helping is cleaning up some sort of a situation or an emergency, quite often with people who don't have the skills of problem solving. It can get quite frustrating. But then let's throw in the family guilt, missing the milestones. Let's get financial stresses, maybe taking care of a sick child or parent, your health as well, health issues that you're having, administrative stress. That is actually the one that when I ask people when they first come into my program, what is the biggest stress you're having right now? And it was dealing with upper level management and stresses and figuring out how to navigate that. So your body cannot distinguish between which is a physical stress, which could also be hitting a tough workout, doing your tactical training. Those are all physical stresses, as well as your mental stresses. They all add up. And all of these go into your body, into your brain, and they all are processed by your stress management system. Now, your body can't tell which one's a high priority and which one's not. And everyone, you're sitting here thinking about finances, your body's sending out stress hormones. You're rushing to a 911 call, your body's sending out stress hormones. You spill your coffee, your body's sending your hormones. You're looking at your screen and it's actually emitting certain blue lights that send a signal to your brain that emits stress hormones. And along with those stress hormones also come blood sugar hormones, glucose, which gives you blood sugar. So you have the stress hormones for the adrenaline rush to fight the fight, and you have the glucose to give you the energy for the fight. So over time, your body has all of these stress hormones floating around all of the time. And these stress hormones, this cortisol, is also your awakening energy hormones. Now, overdoing night shift. So let's start breaking down all of these symptoms he had. Also to note, your stress management system manages 50 different hormones, not just the cortisol and the glucose. So with these 50, you have moods, cognitive thinking, your short-term memory, your brain fog. You have being anxiety. You have depression. You have digestion, blood pressure, liver, kidney, all of your organs, thyroid, adrenals. You have all of your healing, your sleeping, your waking. All of these hormones are managed by your stress management system. And every time that you are pushing your stress management system with all of the stress that's going on, your stress management system eventually gets fatigued. So when you don't have energy, but you can't sleep, that tired and wired is that cortisol, that awakening hormone, that energy hormone. It has no idea when you're supposed to be sleeping or waking. It is so confused because of your shift work. And it is sitting in your frontal lobe of your brain. That's the top front part of your brain. And it sits there and it's floating around. And so what happens is you can't shut off your thoughts. So there is a difference between having thoughts that you can't let go of and reliving one trauma over and over and over again. Okay, so understanding that there is a difference. If it is the same trauma over and over, then that is something that with the therapies and things, they can be helping you process that. But if it is where you have running thoughts, it could be the same worries and different things, but not one specific thing over and over, then that's quite often the hormones that are just firing and need to know what to do and when to do it. So then you have that. Then you have waking mid-sleep. And waking mid-sleep is the glucose hormone. As that glucose hormone has been floating around like crazy through your body all the time, and then let's say the coffee gets cleaned up, or your body realizes, oh, we didn't need glucose to be in front of our screens, to be scrolling through Facebook, or we get to the call and it's cleared. It has to clean it up. So the first thing is your brain says, hey, let's slow this down a little bit, or let's store it. And it stores it around your belly. So if you have a lot of that weight around your belly that you cannot lose, no matter how healthy you eat, how much you work out, it could be that your glucose hormones are asking for help. And then the other thing is that your hormones as well are, your glucose as well, it's supposed to be enough for 8 hours of sleep. But when you're rushing through it so much, it gets so mixed up that it starts running out at 6 hours and 5 hours and 4 and 3 and 2. And your body starts waking you up because it thinks you're in crisis. And so that's the mid-sleep waking. So the hypervigilance, that is actually another issue happening in your body, where your nervous system, you have two branches that work with stress and rest. And they're just like a muscle. When you're working one more than the other, then it gets stronger and quicker to react. So if you are always in that stress response, that, you know how you talk about that tunnel vision that you get. Well, when you're in that response, you don't need to eat a big meal. You don't need all of your healing to be happening right there. You need all of your focus to be on your extremities, to be able to fight that fight on your arms and your legs. And you need that tunnel vision to think about what is happening right now and be in it right now. And so when you are not training that other nervous system, your body can't shift out of it. So when you start getting really hypervigilant, quite often it is that nerve that is firing and firing, and it is thinking that you are in an emergency state and you need to be thinking of crisis right now and be getting yourself out of it. And so you become very hypervigilant, where everything becomes an emergency. The smallest thing that happens with your kids, the smallest problem that your wife may be talking about, the littlest thing that is just slightly off, you may start needing to control things and become a little more frustrated, easier with things. And that is all that nervous system that is not trained properly. And that gets back into that on edge and the sounds and the movement. So you become hyper aware of sounds when you are in that hypervigilant state, when that nerve is really firing. So with that, you can't, if you're not getting into that rest and digest, that vagus nerve, where everything slows down, then you start hearing sounds more. Things become a lot more apparent, because that's what you need when you are in that crisis, when you need to be on. And that's why often you say that work may be less stressful at times, because when you're on calls, all of these systems are needed. So they're kicking in and you're good. But when you're at home, they're not. And they're kicking in. And that's where a lot of the anger and the short fuse starts kicking in at home. And I know with David too, like, he was very short at home with his kids and his wife, and he loved them. It's not what he wanted, but that's what happens to us, is it happens in our home. And then he couldn't focus. So that's as well. There's hormones for that, and there's the nervous system playing on that. So if you cannot get yourself out of that one nervous system, then you can't get out of that narrow-minded thinking into the big picture thinking, to remember the big details, to slow things down, to focus, and to just read. So small tasks, little errands, making a sandwich, your to-do list takes you forever to do one task that may take somebody that's not in that state 10 minutes. So it's hard to be productive, hard to get things done, hard to enjoy your days off, because nothing's really getting done. You're going in circles. And the motivation and drive, that is a lot to do with your hormones, a lot. We find that in the first 10 days, once we start supporting people's hormones and getting them going the way they are, that motivation and drive comes back. And it is phenomenal to see it in them. Things that you didn't want to do, or that you used to love to do, you're not doing anymore. You just have no motivation to just do anything. And it really does interfere with a lot of things in a life. And those are certain hormones that are interfering then. So how did we fix all this with David? So David, when he got on board, got off of his antidepressants with the help of his GP. Okay. It was with, or I think it was his therapist, but it was with the help of his doctor. We started teaching him. I actually have a stress medical advisor in the program who does this part. She teaches them how to support their stress management system. So there's different ways, there's different vitamins. I'll just give you an example. Magnesium. So magnesium, what it does, if you take it an hour before you go to bed, magnesium actually affects the frontal lobe of your brain. And if you remember how I said that the frontal lobe of your brain is also where your stress hormones, that's where they end up like floating around and living a lot when you have a lot of them. And that's where your mind can't shut off. So the magnesium goes in an hour before you go to sleep, and it goes into your brain and it starts calming down that cortisol. So it starts teaching that cortisol, that waking hormone, that it can start decreasing, that it's time to start shutting down. And then we have melatonin, which we do like the smallest dose, because what it is you do an hour before you go to sleep. Melatonin is your sleep hormone, which doesn't know when to kick in. So we do the melatonin, and that whisper of that melatonin tells your body, hey, this is the time we're supposed to be adding in or supposed to be increasing our sleep hormones. So let's start doing it. And then when your melatonin naturally starts producing itself, it starts a whole cascade of other hormones starting to repair and regenerate and remember things from your day. So these hormones start remembering. Your short-term memory comes back. Your brain fog starts improving. Your body starts healing itself. Your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your digestive things, all of these things start to get into alignment. You're waking, you're sleeping, your moods, that edge comes off, the hypervigilance decreases. So this is that motivation reboot. Your motivation comes back in your drive. So we do this first to start getting that back, because there is no way that you can start implementing lifestyle changes to be training that vagus nerve and doing what you need to do if you don't have that motivation and drive, if you're not sleeping. So that's the first thing that we did for him. And that was where on the first day he messaged me going, what is in this? I haven't had this energy. And then I think it was 3 days later, he was out of bed in the morning instead of being curled up in a ball, had reindeer antlers on and was joking and laughing with his girls in the morning instead of sitting there grating on every sound that was happening. All of those things, that edge had just decreased. And that was the first 3 days for him. And then he started focusing on, which you hear him talk about, water and breathing and different things. So there's different, so taking the stress off the body was the water. Okay. So we started doing that, and you will find we have people that really struggle with this in the beginning until they have that motivation reboot phase where they actually have motivation and some reserves in their body to start adding the water in. So we teach you how to add it in and how to make it easier, working around your shifts and things. And then we get into really training your nervous system, really getting into that vagus nerve. So very interestingly, your vagus nerve is, there's also a branch that comes around your neck. And if it's not kicking in when you're sleeping, that can cause snoring, sleep apnea. It really makes your rest and recovery so hard when you cannot kick in that nerve. So we do a lot of nerve training, teaching you to do that, kind of like workouts, except you're working out that rest and digest nerve. And then we start focusing on sleep, making sure that we do some other things to really be retraining your hormones when you're supposed to sleep on any shift, how to be sleeping. And then we actually go into, which David wasn't even into yet. This is here where he was when he did that interview. He hadn't even gotten to the upgraded resilience phase. That's phase 3. So that's where we start teaching you about other external stresses that you can start taking off the table. We do have a financial module for those that are having financial struggles to really be able to get on top of that. there's different triggers and stuff that definitely can cause it. We get into environmental toxins, which was a huge one for myself. And those in the program are noticing that once they do learn about those and decrease them, which is so easy, it makes a difference. We get into nutrition, teaching you how to then start eating to balance out your hormones on night shift, and how to eat on different shifts, especially when you can't get food for long periods of time when you're in the middle of calls, how to get food in those moments, or what to eat when you can, to give your hormones that boost for the long period when you can't be eating. So there's so many different things we do here to give you that upgraded resilience, so that you don't go back there again. All right, so that is where we were at, and that is what got David to where he's falling asleep, where his mind is calm now, and he's able to stay asleep, and he's waking with energy, not that hungover feeling. He's calm. I remember him messaging me and telling me about how they were in a store really busy before Christmas, when it's crazy in the stores, and something happened in the store and he totally stayed calm. And his daughter after was like, "Dad, you stayed calm. You didn't get upset." Like, the kids notice, they see these things, they see the change, and he's becoming the dad he wanted to be. His motivation and drive came back. He loved shooting that bow, and he hadn't taken it out in years because his body was so calm, that nervous system couldn't kick in. So he couldn't take note of the wind and get all of the dials and everything proper. Sorry if I'm using the wrong terminology. In order to make sure that the bow was going right in the target, and so that it was relaxing and calm for him. He started getting back to doing things with his kids and enjoying time with them, which was his main goal. He, when he started this program, was defeated and feeling like his career was over in a job that he loved. And the last time we talked to him, he was on his way to his lieutenant to talk about going back to work. So his brain started clearing. He's starting to look forward doing reports. He has a side business as well, and he found doing emails and client things wasn't tough anymore. He's able to think through it. So his whole life is changing, and he isn't even finished the program. So that's how David did it. That's why everything was happening and how we got it. Now, this is your physical stress system. So every stress that you experience on the job, it hits your body. There's no way that it can't. So it's really great for us to really be supporting that stress management system, and to be able to give you back that resilience and stuff, so that your body can handle it. And then some of the officers in, this officer here, David, he started really making headway in his PTSD therapy treatments. And it made such a difference for him because his brain could think, his body could function. And he was able to then really do what he needed to do. All right. So if any of you would like to see if you are a candidate for the 911 Late Performance Program, you can book a performance assessment with me. Just let me know. You have my email right here, support@911lifestyle.com. Just ask me, say that you just watched this video and you would like a link to my calendar so that we can work it around your shifts and figure out a time that works for you. And your Facebook. You can find me at 911 Stress Management. I have a free Facebook group if you are not in it, and that is full of, at the moment, 2,500, I believe, first responders and their spouses. The program as well is benefiting the spouses. The spouses are finding that the stress that we as spouses, my husband is 11-year police officer, and we have 2 young kids, and there is the stress on us, the calls, the last minute calls saying, "Sorry, I'm running late," I'm in charge of everything, and then just worrying about our spouse and dealing with these symptoms as well in the house are very tough. So this helps the spouse feel that understand that what you're experiencing is not isolated to just you, and understand what you can do. They can help, but also they're under stress too, so that all the things in the program help them as well. Makes you a stronger team and a stronger family. So support at 911lifestyle.com is how you can email me, join the Facebook group 911 Stress MGT, Stress Management, and fire off any questions you have for me. I'm always here to answer questions, and I am excited to help you out.